So it is 5:45, and I'm going to call the meeting of the Zoning Advisory Committee to order. Thank you all for joining us this evening. That brings us through item 1.01. Next is 1.02, roll call.
Present.
Shannon Coley, present. Melissa Cook-Sanford.
Present.
Kristen DeHaan, sorry.
Present.
Cami Elquist-Lorey.
Present.
Chris Knox.
Present.
Mia Mansfield.
Present.
Tyler Rogers.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Do we have anyone that is taking advantage of the interpretation services this evening? We do? One? Okay, wonderful. So for folks that would like that, we also have Spanish interpretation services available in the back of the room. And for folks that are talking, it's also helpful to try to talk a little bit clearly and slowly to allow our interpretation staff. Additionally, to the public that have joined us, thank you. If you do want to participate in public comment for items that are listed for action, there are cards in the back of the room that we just need you to fill out and give to Shannon over here so that you can be in the queue for public comment. All right, that brings us to the main items of this night's agenda. Item 2.01, approval of the minutes of the November 20th, 2025 meeting of the Zoning Advisory Committee. This is an item for possible action. Do we have any questions or comments from the committee on our meeting minutes? Do we have any public comment for this agenda item?
No public comment.
Very good, thank you. Can I get a motion?
Polly Boardman, I move that the Zoning Advisory Committee approves the minutes from the November 20th, 2025 meeting.
Thank you. We have a motion.
Chris Knox, I'll second.
Wonderful. We have a motion and a second for the approval of the Zoning Advisory Committee meeting minutes from November 20th, 2025. This will call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Wonderful. The item passes unanimously. All right. That quickly brings us to agenda item 2.02, the presentation and discussion regarding the implementation status of the district-wide 2023 Facility Modernization Plan, also known as the FMP, and development of the Administrative Facility Modernization Plan, the AFMP. This is for presentation and discussion only, and we are joined by Chief Searcy. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. For the record, my name is Adam Searcy, and this item is for information only, but I thought it was an important update for our community and for this committee. So, want to tell not only an update of where we are, but in order to do that properly, really give a little bit of a history of how we got here and what we've achieved before we talk about where we're going. So that's kind of the agenda for this presentation. Next slide, please. Next slide. As I said, in order to talk about where we're going, I think we want to rewind the history lesson back to 2016, when at the time ballot measure was placed before this community, at the time called WC1. And that initiative, that local sales tax increase, was driven by severe pent-up overcrowding across our district and significant backlog of maintenance needs that were known by the authors of the ballot measure to be perpetual in nature, and therefore was proposed to the voters without end, without a sunset. That, again, at the time was known as WC1, but it was backed by a broad community coalition. That graphic on the slide represents kind of the intensity of yes and no votes, actually, by precinct across the county, and the final tallies resulting in its approval. But what I really wanted to emphasize in this part of the history lesson is that the ballot measure always, in addition to including repairs for our schools and construction of new schools to relieve overcrowding, it always included an element of what at the time was called core school investments. So we're going to talk about how that is manifesting today and as we go forward later. Next slide, please. But since it passed in 2016, we have literally opened 10 new schools and completed 5 major additions. Those are itemized on your slide and listed in detail. Many of these, many of these images on the next slide are shown with shown of our elementary schools. All right, so these projects have benefited all of these schools far beyond the single ribbon cutting events. They've included dramatic improvements to safety and security, created valuable collaborative learning spaces, and hands-on learning opportunities at all of these new schools. Additionally, on the next slide, we can say today that nearly 25 of our students and staff across the district were served by a new school today. Literally today when we went to school 1 and 5. And I mentioned staff as well intentionally because just as our students and learners are positively impacted by these dramatically improved learning environments, our staff are as well. That our older schools are not able to provide the same tools or the same spaces that our staff needs to do their jobs well. So we're proud of that achievement. Moving forward, we've also eliminated overcrowding, severe overcrowding across our district and created healthier, more positive communities. I highlight that on this slide as well. You can see images that perhaps you're familiar with. These are largely from O'Brien Middle School, which you see our restroom images there in the lower right-hand corner. These spaces that were built for our communities as well, our multi-purpose rooms and large open spaces that different groups use from time to time. Next slide, please. Through this work, we have also invested tremendously in our community. Quite literally, over $1.5 billion of these local tax revenues have been invested into these projects, with approximately 90% of those revenues going directly to local engineers, architects, and construction partners. This is an investment of our dollars and into our businesses, but really into the DNA of our communities, into the lives of students. The benefits of those investments have only begun to be received. Next slide, please. So finally, these are images from our newest high schools, offering spectacular spaces, allowing our students to have more flexibility and options across the choices that they make when they go into high school, really exuding messages to these students that they are worthy of greatness, that they have tremendous potential, and that they do deserve to have access to these types of spaces as well. Next slide, please. I want to end with a message over the last 9 years that the seriousness with which we have taken the transparency and oversight that accompanies the responsibility of investing these dollars. Before the community voted on the WC1 ballot measure, the school board enacted what is known as the Capital Fund Protection Committee. This is a public body advisory to the Board of Trustees that's made up of elected officials from Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County, as well as 5 volunteer community members not dissimilar to the Zoning Advisory Committee. That committee is required by board policy to approve the expenditure of every dollar of WC1 funds before the Board of Trustees approves it as well. And I can attest, having presented to them many times, that they take their moniker quite seriously, asking rigorous questions and challenging the decisions to invest these dollars. That's a sneak preview, or that's the history lesson of what we've done. If we go to the next slide, well, let's talk about where that leads us to today. While we've been building these new schools, while we've addressed pent-up overcrowding, we've also had an eye towards the future. You know, I mentioned earlier that 1 in 5 of our students and staff today were served by new schools. Like, that's a good thing. It is a good thing, but the corollary of 4 in 5 were not really needs to be discussed. And how might we continue to invest these resources into our existing schools? So begin the 2023 facility modernization plan. This actually involved extensive community input throughout the 2022 and 2023 years that ultimately resulted in a plan to modernize, reconstruct, or repurpose every school in the district. Really predicated on the premise that the location, the space in which you learn is often more as important as what you learn and can impact the attitude and outcomes as much as it. We embarked on a really widespread engagement campaign. Many of the meeting dates and meeting statistics are highlighted here, but I wanted to try and take a minute, if the video will queue up, that I found a minute-and-a-half news clip from late 2023.
The Washington County School District is continuing to ask for your input on possible changes to school buildings in our area. News 4's Alyssa Beck has the latest on the meetings. What can you tell us about this, Alyssa?
Well, the district has been holding meetings to discuss the different possibilities for those facilities modernization plan, but they want to collect community opinions before finalizing it in the fall. And this week, they're hosting 2 regional conversations regarding potential upgrades and changes to public schools in the Wooster, Reed, and Sparks High School areas. At the meeting earlier tonight, they discussed several options to improve elementary schools that feed into Wooster High School, including possible new campuses and potential consolidation of existing schools into new buildings. They're also looking at ways to update the older high school campuses. Officials say these meetings will help get the word out to the community and are the final opportunity for residents to provide feedback on their plan.
Talking with the community, not only about Wooster, but about the surrounding schools that feed up into Wooster, many of which are more than 60 years old, looking at our most modern schools and talking about ways that we might make major renovations to those school campuses to bring them up to par with our newest school facilities.
Well, the district is hosting another meeting tomorrow at Reed High School, and that'll be at 5:30 p.m. The district encourages you to take their online survey to submit your opinion on the possible changes. It can be found at washoschoolsfmp.net. In the studio, Alyssa Beck, News 4 on your side.
The Washington County School District is continuing to ask for your input on possible changes to school buildings in our area. News 4's Alyssa.
Now, let's go back to the presentation, please, and go on to the next slide. So really, that was just an effort to reiterate the depths that we went to engage with the community to develop this comprehensive plan. Ultimately, the school board and actually the Capital Funding Protection Committee and the school board approved the 2023 facility modernization plan, which can best be summarized to include 3 major elements. I think I mentioned them earlier. Reconstruction of our schools, very much as it sounds and what's transpiring as we speak at Vaughn Middle School and several other locations. The modernization of our existing schools, taking note that many of our schools have plenty of life left in them, but perhaps are lacking some spaces and accommodations that our newest schools have, and so looking for ways to add on or upgrade those facilities. The images on this slide are of Swope Middle School, which is, I think, a great example of an older school which was not demolished but rather added onto and had their existing spaces modernized in an effort to bring it up to a level of physical parity with some of our newest schools. And then of course, repurposing, AKA closure of our schools, many of which have outlived their useful life or are otherwise severely underutilized, looking at how we might reevaluate our facility portfolio, redistribute our assets to best deliver our services to our students and our communities. That's what was proposed in the FMP. Flipping to the next slide, the P in FMP is just a plan, and it remains just a plan. I think in addition to the history lesson, in addition to discussion of how we developed the FMP, it's important to note that each and every one of these projects must go through a rigorous process of site level engagement, of community meetings, of zoning advisory committee meetings, of capital funding protection committee meetings, and of course, multiple rounds of interim steps towards completion must be approved by the Board of Trustees. Each and every round not only increases the level of transparency and accountability, but it increases the opportunity for the public, as you all well know, to influence, inform, and ultimately improve the outcome associated with every one of these projects. So really want to lift that up. This committee knows the impact and the nature of that progress very, very well. So just a plan until we really get to work. So on the next slide, we're going to talk about some of our active modernization projects. All of the schools listed on the top, Reed, Matthews, Palmer, Booth, North Valleys, and Sparks High Schools. You may or may not be familiar with some or all of these, but they are all in some state of active progress towards that modernization recommendation from the FMP. The images there include Matthews Elementary. If you're familiar with what we call the pinwheel elementary school design, we have 22 of those schools across the district. Matthews is the first one. There is so much potential, I believe, with that campus and that school. We dealt with the rezoning associated with the repurposing of Kate Smith, bringing that community into Matthews earlier. But the change that is being instigated by the modernization project there, I really truly believe will ripple through that community in an extremely positive way. And a little closer to home, we've got Booth being modernized just two days ago. No, pardon me, that was Loader. But as we speak, we are progressing with the design of the modernization of Booth, through which we will complete the same basic scope, looking for ways to add spaces to Booth, to upgrade the existing spaces, to bring it up to a level of facility equity closer to what our newest schools have. Additionally, on the next slide, we'll talk about our reconstruction. It's a little simpler to imagine. I mentioned Vaughn earlier, and last Tuesday, 2 days ago, it was the Loader campus that was approved by the board, a construction contract to replace that school with a brand new elementary school on the existing campus. So all the schools listed up there, Stead, Vaughn, Loader. We've also recently discussed the new elementary school on the Pine campus, as well as Sparks Middle School is proposed to have a complete reconstruction completed in the immediate future. Extremely impactful, significant investments in these communities that are underway as we speak. Next slide. We're going to talk about repurposing. Repurposing also, as this committee knows, represents a closure of a school. This is a very big decision and one that the district has approached with the utmost compassion and seriousness. I and other district leaders have met with the principals of schools individually. We've met with staffs from schools and continue to engage through a variety of channels with community members impacted by these serious decisions. You can see the 6 schools listed on this slide and the associated proposed years of closures. Then moving forward, recognizing that these schools persist with extremely low enrollments in very old, underserved buildings, and looking for ways to achieve that trade-up scenario. While we respect that change is difficult and challenging, we want to respect everyone impacted and listen, include their voices in the process as we look to rezone them and improve the buildings and the resources in the buildings that they will be served through in the coming years. So that's really a big driver of what we're here to talk about tonight in terms of the anticipated closure of Veterans and Corbett in the 27-28 school year, and how most likely Booth and Loader can serve those communities in lieu of those two closing schools. Next slide, please. This is a slide that is a little too detailed to try to squint at. If you can read it on your handouts, great. But it's really message rich on the left-hand column. A lot of key points that we want the community to hear and feel, but also kind of an infographic to illustrate what I just narrated. That Loader and Booth will be reconstructed and modernized, as I just described, to coincide with the closure of Veterans and Corbett and the redrawing of the enrollment boundaries, the redistribution of the students and resources to ultimately result in a trade-up scenario, as I described, for those students and staff in these communities. Next slide, please. This actually was taken from a slide that I presented to the City of Reno Ward 3. If many of you are familiar with that ward, it's sort of outlined on this graphic. It encompasses all of the schools we're talking about here tonight and more. Went through these projects in some detail, and you guys are actually more familiar than most with these projects. But the punchline here, from a dollar standpoint, is spelled out on the bottom of the slide. Really kind of hit home for me. Over $250 million in the next 5 years alone will be invested into public school facilities within just Ward 3. Really an impactful statement for me. Just talking about the brick and mortar investment, not talking about the long-term life-changing impacts that these public school facilities will have on the lives of our students and staff. So that's the FMP wrap, but there's just a little bit more. Next slide, please. We intentionally omitted the facilities that serve our non-site-based personnel across the district for a very intentional and purposeful reason. We're always prioritizing the needs of our students first. And so now 2+ years into the implementation of the FMP, we find it appropriate to question, hey, there are hundreds of professionals ranging all across the spectrum of services, payroll technicians, accountants, lawyers, engineers, et cetera, who exist to serve our schools from roles outside of the classroom. They too are scattered across the district in antiquated facilities. So how might we assess what we have and propose a plan to better serve those employees so that they can better serve our schools and our students? These are excerpts from our October board meeting, where an external consultant presented their evaluations and recommendation towards a consolidated headquarters model at this point. The board approved that recommendation and directed staff to implement or initiate in-depth evaluation of 2 finalist locations. On the next slide, you'll see that the 2 finalist locations were recommended as the existing 9th Street property, where if, of course, you all are familiar, our school board meets and many of our central admin staff work daily as a potential site to construct a new administrative facility, as well as considering the current Corbett and Wooster campuses for the location of a potential future consolidated headquarters site for the district. That's as much detail that was presented at this point. The team is actively in progress. In fact, I just left a wonderful student voice work session with a bunch of students at Wooster, talking about what these concepts might look like and how their voice might influence what options we might bring back to the board. But ultimately, the schedule projects that a recommended preferred site location will be presented to the board later this calendar year, likely before summer break, and then the process will begin on answering the myriad of details associated with whichever site we choose. So that's really the summary of the FMP and the AFMP. Next slide, please. Just to wrap, the takeaway on the FMP, we've got modernization projects, we've got reconstruction projects, and we've got repurposing projects. We know how impactful those can be, both in terms of disruptive and emotional change, and also inspirational new spaces for the future. And just want to leave you with the statement that I believe deeply in the work that I do and that you all share such an important role in, that no single piece of public infrastructure, not a road, not a church, not an airport, has a greater impact on a community than a school. And this community and this organization, I'm really proud to be a part of, because we put our money where our mouth is, investing in our students, and watching that investment ripple through our community is something that I'm really proud to be a part of. So again, this is just an informational update. We have so much going on. It's difficult for all of us to keep track of, and I appreciate your time just to allow me to share this publicly again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Searcy. I personally find it very helpful to have these sort of periodic updates on the FMP to inform our work, because there's clearly a direct line between and the zoning impacts on the community. I think I've had the good fortune to visit some of these new facilities, and I'm sure members of the committee and the members of the public have as well. And I think I feel a sense of pride every time I think we walk into these facilities, and I hope that the community members too feel that as well, because it is a clear investment into our community. Any questions from committee members on Chief Searcy's presentation?
I would just like to add, I've been serving for about 1.5 years on this committee, and this is an excellent onboarding. It anchors me into understanding sort of the bigger picture, and I think as we listen to people in these kind of meetings that come up with their perspectives, there's a larger kind of investment underway. So while change is hard, I appreciate this because it helps anchor my decision making. So thank you very, very much.
I just want to sort of reconfirm the Worcester point, because I have had community discussions outside of this of like people are sort of thinking that Worcester could be repurposed, which sounds like a discussion that is still very much TBD of what is happening relates to the admin plans, correct?
Yeah, so the presentation in October to the board suggested that, as we know, the Corbett campus, immediately across Villanova Lane from Worcester, is slated to close. It's about 5 acres in size in the 27-28 school year, and that immediately across the street there's some 10 or 15 acres of flat fields that could be in some way, shape, or form utilized to manifest an admin headquarters facility. That could be accomplished without impacting Worcester High School buildings, but certainly would create some degree of change to the Worcester High School campus. What change precisely that becomes is very much still to be determined. So at the October presentation, we merely presented it as a preferred alternate, or a finalist rather, centrally located, of sufficient size and availability. We're vetting that in concert with the current 9th Street property as well, each of which have pros and cons. Ultimately hoping for a preferred site selection from the board, and likely many of the subsequent questions, which are very important. What does it mean in terms of change in this regard, in this regard, in this regard, are likely not different than our K-8 study. If you guys remember, that's sort of a trailing study from our FMP, that a lot of what happens to Worcester should the site be selected for admin headquarters questions will be questions that get answered immediately after the site selection is made. We'll see how it plays out. We're looking at all of those questions, and we'll be having those conversations with the community and the public. As I mentioned, engaging with the staff this week, engaging with the students this week in small, medium, and large groups are just some of the ways that our consultant qualitatively and then, of course, quantitatively are assessing the Worcester option as well as the 9th Street option.
Thank you. I think the last question on that is, since this community is directly impacted by that, are there other ways that they can stay informed to participate over the coming months in that process?
Yeah, we've, of course, our website is one of the best avenues. We don't have any community meetings at this point. We are tentatively slated for update to the school board in our March timeframe. And I guess, stay tuned. We'll be messaging the public if
Committee on this one? Very good. Thank you for the time and the presentation.
Thank you.
That will bring us to the next agenda item, which is 2.02, presentation of, I'm sorry, we've already done that one. We're on 2.03. 2.03, presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding the proposed elementary level enrollment zone adjustments for the 2027-28 school year, potentially impacting the following schools: Roger Corbett Elementary School, Smithridge Elementary School, E. Otis Vaughn Middle School, Earl Wooster High School, and Damati Ranch High School. And this is an item for possible action. And I'll pass the mic over to staff. Brett.
Thank you, folks. Brett Rodella, Long Range School Planner with the district. Appreciate your time, engagement, and efforts tonight. So this first topic we're meeting on is a rectification of previously unforeseen circumstance related to the South Corbett zone. As you know, we met in November, passing a recommendation to the board related to the new elementary school at Pine Campus that recommended a southern portion of Corbett Elementary School that's south of the airport and east of 395 to be zoned into the new elementary school. One thing we did not factor into all of that was the fact that Corbett is going to be closing in the 27-28 school year. That said, due to the decision to move it into the elementary school at Pine and its adjacency to Smithridge enrollment boundary, we're here to hopefully formally move to recommend to the board that this southern Corbett piece get zoned into Smithridge Elementary School for the 27-28 school year only. Along with this recommendation comes with a change to Wooster High School, as the recommendation with the Pine aspect was to move Wooster to Damati Ranch High School to align with the rest of that enrollment boundary. That Wooster to Damati Ranch piece would go into effect in 27-28 with this change to Smithridge as well. Next slide, please. A quick review of some of our policies for Admin Reg 5015, School of Choice, which supports students and families' options to attend a school of their choice outside their zone, up to 90% of that school's capacity. In addition to that, the Regional Transportation Commission and the school district have partnered to offer and provide free transportation to any Washoe County School District student anywhere in the region that RTC travels to. It's just added context to kind of the whole dynamic with School of Choice. For Admin Reg 7107, this pertains to legacy grades, specifically impacted Wooster 12th graders during the 27-28 school year. Our current 10th graders, they'll have the option to remain at Wooster if they'd prefer to do so in that changing year. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is a quick overview of the piece of geography and discussion at the south of Corbett Elementary's enrollment boundary. I'm referring to this area as the Gentry Airway Pocket, as it sits in between Gentry Way and Airway Drive, I think. You can tell its adjacency just immediately south on that map on the right. South of it is the Smithridge enrollment boundary. You folks have already moved to recommend it to the elementary school at Pine. So just giving you an overview of the geography that we're dealing with here, and to help bring into view the practicality of why this area should go to Smithridge for that 1 year. Listed here also is as you've seen our impacted students charts, with that first number in red indicating total students that reside in zone and attend their zone school, that being Corbett, and then the second number being total students that live in that zone. So we're expecting about 35 students being impacted that attend their zone school in this area at both elementary and high school. Next slide, please. This is a look at the student enrollment projections before and after, with the before numbers being on the left and the after numbers being on the right. You'll notice a change of roughly 35 students being added to Smith Ridge and roughly 35 students leaving Worcester to go to Damani Ranch. Next slide, please. Lastly, we've got our staff recommendation written at top, and we've provided a recommended motion if it's of use to you. Again, this is kind of seen as the only practical solution for these students, as their school is going to be closing in 27, 28, and they won't attend the brand new school until 28, 29. So I'll wrap that up and appreciate your attention to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. So I think in summary, really we recognize that this move needed to happen a year earlier than what we sort of have been talking about for the past year, given the timing of Corbett closing.
That's correct.
Okay.
And to some degree, it coordinates with the changes that we're going to discuss in the next presentation. So this doesn't sit separate from what's occurring throughout the rest of Corbett, Veterans, Booth, and Loader.
Okay. Questions from the committee? Seeing no green lights. Do we have any public comment on this item?
No public comment on this item. I'm sorry, yes. Pablo Nava Duran.
Thank you.
Hello guys, my name is Paul Duran. I'm officially a Ward 3 NAP members, which is my area of the Smith Street, not just the New World area, but the Donald Smith area, all the way to this area, Central Winter area. So I will support the Century Elwood Park to Smith Ridge Elementary School for 2027, 2028 school year. I know it's going to be changing for these students, so I feel like the Smith Ridge community and the Smith Ridge Elementary School should welcome them with open arms. So I will support this motion. Also, plus, I want to say thank you to the Washington County School District's staff leader to make it happen, to make a public transportation free for all kids, especially for my community who are an economic disadvantaged area, like Smith Ridge and Central Winter area. You know, some north part of a student attend Worcester, 34 kids of this area go to Worcester High School. You know, that make it difficult route to have to go across the freeway to go to Worcester High School. And then make it, that to either walk to different paths or take a public transportation, pay $2 fees or $4 every single day to go to Worcester. It's up the past year not until this year, that student will charge for free, so I'm thankful for that. So while those students, FCC rate will go up. And I will support reasons from Worcester to Damani Ranch High School. I know it will cost transportation money, but this is the best student for them. And those community belongs to a New World community. United as one, together, make a new elementary school Pine campus. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad the topic of transportation came up. These folks that live in this community, are they getting currently transportation to Corbett? And if so, would they receive transportation into Smith Ridge and the new elementary school that's coming?
I can't say for sure on the Corbett piece, but I would say 99.9% sure, if that's fair. They do receive it based off of where they're living. So please accept that as well as you can.
As well as in the future, so this...
In the future, to Smithridge, when we looked at it last time for elementary school at Pine, some of these students were in the walk zone to the elementary school at Pine. I forget what the counts were. Any students that are beyond a mile walk will receive transportation. Anyone within a mile will be considered a walk student. So,
got it. Thank you. Any other questions of staff on this one? If not, this makes sense to me. This was our intention over the past year, and I think we're just aligning the calendar based on the reality of the Corbett closure. Is anyone prepared to make a motion on this one?
I'd move, Shannon Coley for the record. I move that the Zoning Advisory Committee recommends the rezoning of the Gentry Airway Pocket as presented, effective for the 2027-28 school year, to the Board of Trustees for possible approval.
Thank you, Chair Coley. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Mia Mansfield for the record. I second it.
Wonderful. We have a motion and a second. We will vote now. All those in favor of the proposed motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Wonderful. The motion passes unanimously. All right. That brings us to the next agenda item, 2.04, presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding the proposed elementary level enrollment zone adjustments for the 27-28 school year, potentially impacting the following schools: Roger Corbett Elementary School, Libby Booth Elementary School, Echo Loader Elementary School, Veterans Memorial Elementary School, E. Otis Vaughn Middle School, and Earl Wooster High School. This item is for possible action. Back over to Brett.
Thanks, folks. For the record, Brett Rodella, Long Range School Planner with the district. This presentation entails some housekeeping and context items. We're going to take another look at the geography that we reviewed last November and look at our options, and then we'll open it up for questions and discussion. Next slide, please. Thank you. So our topic purpose, why we're here: Loader Elementary School is being reconstructed on its existing campus, opening fall of 2027. Booth is receiving an expansion and modernization effective fall of 2027. As a result of the presentation you previously heard from Adam Searcy, Veterans and Corbett Elementary Schools are going to be closed and repurposed and rezoned into Loader and Booth. We expect there will be no impacts to middle school or high school enrollment boundaries as a result of these changes. Next slide. A quick review of our admin regs. 5015 pertains to school of choice, again, supporting students and parents' ability to attend schools outside of their enrollment boundary up to a school's 90% capacity. And the admin reg is not going to be pertinent to students here as a result of any changes to enrollment boundaries. Students aren't going to have the ability to attend their pre-existing school. So next slide, please. Review of our guiding principles from Admin Reg 7107 to keep subdivisions and small neighborhood units in the same attendance zone to the extent possible. We want to assign students to the closest school to the best of our ability, create compact attendance zones with few or no island areas, include target enrollments that allow for growth and anticipated changing demographics, comply with feeder patterns to the extent possible, and avoid placing a transportation burden on identifiable diversity subgroups. Next slide. A review of our FMP impacts to facilities, all occurring in the 27-28 school year. We've got Loader undergoing that reconstruction, Corbett and Veterans being repurposed, and Booth being modernized. I know this is a little redundant, but I'm keeping the sort of flow of these slides as we've seen in previous presentations. So, a review of special programs. These schools are rich with special programs that are outlined here. The expectation is that these special programs will follow the students appropriate to student populations. as changes are made. This is a review of transportation impacts. This models our option 1 that we're looking at tonight. We can discuss what transportation looks like as we proceed through options 2 and 3. However, should North Veterans be zoned to Booth, they would mostly walk. I think transportation reported about 12 students currently residing in that area would receive a bus. Everybody else will receive a bus, which includes that South Veterans to Loader, North Corbett going over to Booth would receive a bus. Central and South Corbett would receive a bus to Loader. A lot of it, I think, pertains to crossing arterials more so than distance. We would have to break it down into a kind of a deeper analysis, but we're looking at crossing Vassar, Plum, and Kitsky with some of these changes. So that's the main considerations with why a lot of these students would receive transportation. Next slide, please. Here's a breakdown of students currently residing in the impacted areas. The first number in red indicating students that are residing in zone and attending their zone school, and that second number reflecting total zone students. The white boxes show total students that are attending out of zone in those areas and kind of where they're trending towards attending. One thing that I was looking at today that I didn't address on this, that, you know, if I could go back, I would, is I didn't add on here students in the Loader and Booth areas, you know, because they're not necessarily going to be quote unquote impacted. But one thing I found that I think is worth the attention of this body is that within the Loader zone, there's a total of 92 students that attend district-sponsored charters. And we talked last session about the possibility, even expectation and trends in our new schools receiving students that attended district-sponsored charters, state-sponsored charters, which we don't have a great tracking of where they come from, as well as homeschool and private school students. We see on average 15% additional enrollments to our new schools. And I think that was a figure of around 70 students. So just pointing that out, that of these impacted areas, 53 out of 151 students are attending district-sponsored charters. Add that 92, you've got 140 some students that potentially could come back to the reconstructed Loader and the modernized Booth. So just kind of planting that seed for your consideration as we move forward. I think it's relevant and worth our attention. So next slide, thank you. Taking a look at the macro geographical scope of what we're dealing with. You saw this slide in November. We're dealing with 4 elementary school enrollment boundaries that are south of I-80, east of Virginia Street, inside McCarran to the north and east of it. And these areas include Wells Avenue, Glendale industrial areas, west and parts of the airport, and it's bisected by Interstate 580, Highway 395. Next slide, please. As we were initially looking at this region and kind of what made sense in terms of modeling enrollment boundaries, we noticed Vassar Street and Plum existing as very clear east-west arterial delineations, with Kitsky running north and south, and that splits Corbett from both from Loader, Veterans, and Booth. So we're kind of leaning into those arterials kind of significantly when it comes to studying the area and making recommendations for what can/should be done in terms of drawing new enrollment boundaries here. Next slide, please. So option 1, and as you can tell, it's our staff recommendation. Let me break this down a little further, is that Veterans is bisected by Vassar Street. So we've got that north Veterans area in orange. Also trisected by Vassar and Plum is north of Vassar is North Corbett, south of Vassar and north of Plum we're calling Central Corbett, and then south of Plum in Corbett is South Corbett. This just gave us some logical language and way to model this. So for option one, we're looking at moving North Veterans into Booth and North Corbett into Booth, all of which is north of Vassar Street. Everything south of Vassar Street would then turn into Loader, with exception to that South Corbett piece that you've motioned to recommend to the board to put into Smithridge. Continuing everything south of Vassar again in the Veterans and Corbett enrollment boundaries would go into Loader. When it comes to incongruencies with our admin reg guiding principles, this is about as good as it gets. We assessed and saw none. Next slide, please. And this is a look at the before and after geography of what those changes would look like, where you're really using Vassar Street as the sole delineation between Booth and Loader. As far as I can tell, an enrollment boundary could not be any cleaner. And that means something to the work that I do when it comes to making things kind of clean and clear and simple. And is a big aspect, it leans into why it's part of our recommendation. Next slide. Look at our student enrollment projections with current conditions on the left and then the impacts afterwards on the right. The big takeaway for me is that this option, in addition to being cleanest geographically, also balances enrollments better between the two schools. A difference of 90 students in the 10-year horizon favoring Loader based off of kind of the dynamics of all things. I found this to be a healthy setup between both schools, and I think from what I interpret, if lines were drawn here, our office would expect not to revisit zoning for these two elementary schools for the foreseeable future, for as long as that lasts. And obviously things can change, but in terms of considering even revisiting zoning, it's outside of our, most reasonable considerations, put it that way. Next slide, this is option 2. Very similar to option 1. The only difference is that instead of North Veterans going to Booth, this option models putting all of Veterans into Loader. The breakdown for Corbett is identical to option 1, with North Corbett going into Booth and Central and South Corbett going into Loader. For admin reg incongruencies, we see our 2, 3, and 6. We can get into that towards the end of the presentation with our scorecard. This is a look at the before and after geography with the north line relative to current Veterans enrollment boundary being East Taylor Street. It then moves south on Kitsky and east on Vassar Street. Thank you. And then this is a look at the enrollment projections after this move. This was something that within our office was received acceptably. I'd point out that in that 10-year horizon, you're looking at a difference of 190 students between each school favoring Loader. So not as clear and clean of a balance, but still acceptable. And I will mention that Booth is scheduled within the FMP to receive a reconstruction in the 2034 to 2037 timeframe. So at that point, we could see a possibility that we revisit zoning again to bring some of the students that are in that North Veterans area into the newly constructed Booth. That remains to be seen and is unknown, but it is a practical consideration relative to all these things. And lastly, option 3, similar to the previous scenario, however, this models all of Veterans going into Booth. We see the incongruencies there, 2, 3, 4, and 6, which we'll visit. Next slide. A layout of the geography here. That southern boundary is on Plum. It heads north on Kitsky and then over east on Vassar Street to, again, encompass all of Veterans into Booth. And next slide. Just cutting real to the chase. This option overcrowds Booth considerably and considerably underutilizes a brand new loader. So we're considering this a non-option relative to those factors. And next slide. Here's a look at our guiding principles scorecard. And I, again, just reiterate that this is subjective. It can be argued, you know, if people see argument in it. And options 2 and 3 are relative to option 1, where in option 1, subdivisions remain, I think, more closely and better defined. Closeness to schools, compactness are cleaner and tighter in option 1. Option 1 allows for growth. Feeder patterns are preserved in all of these. Transport aspect is neutral here. And then relative to option 1, option 2 is considered inferior on closeness and compactness as you're sending that north Veterans boundary south to Loader. Transport burden as a result of that is considered inferior. And that's very similar in option 3. However, there's no growth allowed in that option at the Booth. So that wraps up that. Next slide. We've provided a staff recommendation as well as a recommended motion. I anticipate that we'll probably be meeting on this next month. But again, just option 1 establishes a very clear delineation using clear arterials and current neighborhood layouts, and it balances enrollments for the long term. And that's really the argument for why we've recommended it as the optimal option. And with that said, next slide, I'll open it up to questions and discussion.
Thank you, Brett. Really informative. Just to triple confirm what I heard, all the options have no impact on a middle school or a high school feeder. All of these students would still flow into Vaughan and Worcester.
That's correct.
Great, thank you. Questions from the committee of staff? I've got 2. Just to confirm, sort of the North Corbett part, that part north of the river is like a heavily industrial sort of types of facilities. Sort of is there much of a population of sort of students north of the river?
No, especially the more east you get, it kind of fizzles out in terms of student residences. There are some. There's a mobile home park. I forget where exactly in that enrollment boundary towards the northeast and those students currently attend Hidden Valley Elementary. Actually, no, sorry. It's very sparse in terms of residences on that northeast section. We could go back to the slide that lays out students impacted to take a better look. But just to say it, the further east you get, the less dense in residence it gets. So
thank you.
Yep.
Unlike other parts of the district that we have discussed and explored around like future development, this is a much more sort of urban area.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, we talk about development in other parts of the city.
Yeah.
What development is the district aware of sort of around these geographies that we should be factoring in?
It's a great question, and I'll bring you numbers next month on that. It's not a huge impact when it comes to development, and a lot of it would be redevelopment and any infill on kind of multifamily projects that there is land. I'll put numbers on it and present that next month to give you some certainty on that.
Thank you.
Yep.
I also wanted to bring up that this geography also, I mean, this whole zone also includes the Reno Sparks Indian Colony, which is a really important community group. Their voice is somewhat absent tonight because I've been made aware that they are actually having a 90th celebration of the colony. I've been in touch with liaisons to them and plan to meet with them subsequent to this meeting ahead of that, but I want to make sure that sort of the committee knows that that's a voice I think it's important to hear and that we're proactively reaching out to. Vice Chair Coley and I have also reached out to the principals of each of the elementary schools, which we happen to plan to get feedback. A number of them are here tonight, but we also plan to reach out to them and engage with those communities. So it's my hope and intent that we don't act on this tonight so that we can gather that feedback, but we absolutely should discuss, ask questions of staff, and take public comment. So with that, any other questions of staff before I open it up for public comment?
Yeah, really quick. South Corbett, do those kids take buses to Corbett? They don't cross Plum, right?
They do receive buses to Corbett.
The south, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Melissa Cook for the record. I'm not comfortable either making a decision tonight just because I think we need to hear from the school communities, especially considering that we're talking to some of the options split these school communities. And I know that that's something that's important to try to keep our neighborhoods and our school communities together.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff? Yes.
Holly Boardman, this isn't a question of staff. If the Reno Sparks Indian Colony is in the green, there's no options other than the choice that they have is booth. So I don't know why we would need to wait on that. It's not, they're not going to go to Loader.
Yeah, I personally would just like for them to weigh in.
Okay, I'm just, yeah.
That's a fair point.
I mean, we have one non-option. It's too crowded. So we have two options. And one is sending a bunch of kids across Vassar and Plum, and one is not. So I guess I feel like, what are we waiting on? I mean, to do this again, I guess. But I mean, I'd like to hear public comment. I'm just curious.
Helpful. Let's open it up to public comment then. Do we have any public comment on this item?
Pablo Nava Duran.
Hello guys, my name is Paul Natuan. I'm a Ward 3 members, NAB members. So Councilman Martinez is not here tonight, so she'll be here tonight. So I want to say thank you, Tyler Weiser and Melissa Cook Stanford for not making it to tonight. So that decision need to be delayed to have more voices for community. That includes Reno Spark Indian colonies in the industrial area, but they have no student in there. We're not worried about the student, but we're about the Reno Indian colonies and those around the community. So I don't represent not just the New World community, but I represent the central Reno area. That includes the downtown area over there, 4th Street corridor. That's not my area, but that Ward 1 area. So I want to say, and we want to hear from an apartment from Kiski Triangle, south of Moana Lane, wherever those students. I want more information on this area, especially on the Kiski Triangle on Moana Lane, if they're receiving variance to that school. Because my concern is, if you look at lower enrollment, I'm shockingly low. You know, I would not recommend those students to rezone to Smith Street, but I want them to a new lower elementary school, have a new school at lower elementary school. I think why the lower's number is so low because if you look at most of these neighborhoods were built on mobile park. That means more family can live temporarily and then move out those neighborhoods. And that neighborhood is primarily a senior resident. Even the new development on Gentry Way, on Lower Avenue, that's a senior-only apartment complex. So Another factor is the Bill Charter elementary school being factored in. So if you build new lower elementary school, I think you consider closely Bailey Charter Elementary School. You know, I want more information on Kids Triangle. If a number of students were to receive variance from different, other than going lower elementary school to go Smith rate for variance, that probably makes sense. So thank you.
Thank you.
Beth Dory.
Of course, yeah. Just push the little talking head button.
This one?
Oh, it looks like they turned it on for you. Try one more time.
Off.
There we go.
Okay.
We're good. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Beth Dory. We own 7 homes on Vassar Street, so generations of kids of our tenants have come to the school. I lived on Balzar Circle, and my husband graduated from Vaughan and Worcester 50 years ago. So we're very familiar with this neighborhood and the community. To me, this school is the most beautiful school out of all the examples that Mr. Searcy has shown. If you look at the architecture, the school was built in 1948 to honor veterans. It's only one of 2 schools in the state of Nevada that honors these veterans. And it is on the National Historic Site. So to me, this is a beautiful school. And I will get the hook because I have a long statement, so when the 3 minutes are up. Taken from a memo from Mr. Searcy on May 12, 2025. Corbett, Dotson, Duncan, Smithridge, Stead, Veterans, Cannon, Dilworth, Drake, Dunn, Elmcrest, Greenbrae, Lemelson, Lincoln, Park, Mitchell, Peavine, Alice Risley, Kate Smith, and Warner may be on the chopping block, according to the facilities modernization plan down the road. That's a lot of real estate. Today, a friend told me that there are discussions to use some of these facilities to house homeless. I'm wondering if somebody could comment on that later. To date, the district has spent $1.5 billion in school improvements. In 2016, when the Save Our Schools tax was promoted, the district knew at the time that there was declining enrollment. Now the district must close schools to help offset the $18 million deficit brought on in part because of reduced student count. The district has spent over $3 million on veteran schools since 2021, a school that they now plan to close 10 years sooner than originally planned. I cannot find any research where updated facilities correlate with student success and increased test scores. On page 8 of the facility modernization plan, it states, sadly, there is a measurable correlation of poor facility adequacy and indicators of student need without any citation. Questions I have with Reno's obvious growth, why is the district losing so many students? The $3.5 million facility modernization study does not address why many parents do not want their children to attend public schools. Why? Why isn't there, time?
Thank you.
Thank you.
No more public comment on this item.
Very good. I think since the topic of sort of acting came up, I think part of my intent, or I think the thinking collectively, is the school of choice window will open up for community members in March. And so the goal is to have a decision from Zach by our February meeting, which can then be acted upon by the school board in February, so that the community members can have that knowledge going into a school of choice decision in March. So I want to share that additional context. Any other questions or specific guidance to staff of the options presented that the committee wants to see if we are to meet again?
Melissa Cook for the record. I understand what Polly was saying, and she's totally right for that particular piece. But I would love to hear from the veterans community what option they feel is best for their community. That's really the group that I want to hear from, as well as their administrators.
So to that end, we've reached out to the admin staff and hope to have that context from the next meeting. Any other comments from the committee?
Polly Boardman, do we have anybody here tonight that wants to speak on public comment on that? I mean, we announced it in November, now it's January, you're still wanting to wait. I guess, why would we expect more public comment then? Like, could we get comment tonight from people? I mean,
I would welcome,
you know.
no one submitted comment from that community now. I think.
I mean, speak out on the first one, we might not get them on the second. I'm just dragging it out for people when they have a deadline coming up for school of choice. We see that a lot of people utilize school of choice in here or other schools. I feel like we should have a discussion about it here so that people have time to put in a public comment card rather than just delaying it for an unknown, you know.
I hear you. I see a public comment card potentially coming up.
Is the principal of veterans here? Oh, and you don't have any? No? Okay.
Not to put you on the spot.
Either one,
Public
you can-
comment for Fatima Rivas.
Okay, so good evening, members of the board. I'm glad that you're taking the time to meet tonight to talk about the impact that will have to the veterans community. Sorry, I got a little excited. So I do not reside in this community, but I'm familiar with the communities in this area. I would say that there has been a lack of communication and engagement with the veterans community, and I know that for a fact. We haven't seen information posted for families to actually attend. Your meetings are at 5:30. Working families are barely making back home or picking up their kids from childcare. They don't have time to come to a meeting that looks and sounds like this, where half of the time you don't understand as a parent what is it that is actually happening. There hasn't been enough engagement because you haven't engaged the families where they at. This community in particular, you have a lot of immigrant families. They're fearful right now. They don't want to come out. Even though our community has not been impacted, this is very real. And the fact that you're asking to have them come at night without any reassurances of safety, that's a concern. So if you're really, and I appreciate that you're taking the time to call on parents, but be realistic of who you're trying to engage and how you're wanting to engage. I agree this is a beautiful working family community. If you get time to spend it around the neighborhood, you will also see the impact of gentrification that has had in our community. And that's the reason why you're seeing decrease in enrollment, I think, in part of it. So you have to really spend time engaging with the community in the times, in a safe place, so they can come and speak out. I don't want to say that I'm speaking on their behalf, but I think that's what's happening, and I hope that you take the time, even if it means more meetings for you guys. This is your job. This is what you sign up for, and I think it's your due diligence is to really engage with families with efforts that are meaningful, that really speak to the needs of the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy Fernandez.
Hello, good evening. I am the school secretary. Thank you for being here and helping us plan this amazing plan for our students. And I'm a little nervous, I'm sorry. Please do give us a chance for our parents to kind of view your input. We would love for our families, as you can see, our attendance is not great today, but it would give our families, I guess, an eye-opening of what's gonna happen. a lot of parents are busy, a lot of parents at work. I know the topic is out there already. Our families feel a little devastated and sad that we're gonna be moving on. But please do give that opportunity to our families to attend maybe another meeting to realize that this is gonna happen. So if you can take that in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Monique Madrid.
Hello, I am Monique Madrid Lewingau, the principal at Veterans, for the record. I would like to agree with Mrs. Cook because our community doesn't always feel they have a voice. And with the typical ways that we communicate and send out agendas, and even with our forum of like Connect Eds and Class Dojos, they don't always feel like they have a voice. So I think in speaking for my community and having been here for the last 6 years, I think it would be important to have at least one other meeting and in the meantime allow for me to really speak more with them and get an idea of what they would like. As our Secretary of City has expressed, this was a hit for us and it was very shocking. And while I understand the bigger picture and how important this is going to be for our community in the future, they're still living in the change that has just come upon them. So I think just it would be appreciated to allow me and my staff to just get some more input from them in a more comfortable situation, because they don't always feel comfortable coming to a forum such as this. And as Cindy stated, it's nerve-wracking and it makes them nervous to just even think about the futures for their kids and what is going to be best. And while the options are appreciated, I think that there is some vast differences between option 1 and 2 for the veterans community. So I would personally like to hear what they think is best for their children and give them a voice in a different way so they can feel more comfortable. They're working through it and it's been great, and I know that they see the bigger picture for their kids, but it isn't always comfortable for them in this type of forum. So I think between now and the next meeting and a decision being made at that meeting, it seems like an appropriate timeline because they will still have that time before the school of choice window. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Not for this item.
So I don't disagree with the point that's been brought up, but I do think a fundamental aspect of ZAC is having the community feel invested in it, and I think we've heard that that is a little more time can enable that. I think kudos to staff that have started to put materials out in Spanish. So some of the materials here tonight were translated into Spanish to try to further engage with the communities that is their native language. I think unless there's an actual motion to act on this tonight, I think I'm ready to close this agenda item out.
I'm not.
Okay.
Kristen DeHaan for the record. I think it was really important to hear, and I think that this has happened historically, that families have a really hard time getting here when we're here. I don't know if there's a way to do it at another time. I'm a teacher. I would have to take time off. But in order, like if that was something I had to do in order to serve families so that they could come at a time when they feel safer, I would do that. But I don't know if that's an option or if there's anything like that we can do, or if we can have it at a later time so when families are coming back from work, they might be able to make it. I think that happens with a lot of district things, and it's really hard to get a time that works for everybody. I totally understand that. Board meetings for a teacher are really hard to get to. But it's also important because this impacts communities, and so I don't know if there's any way that we could do that or talk about that.
Holly Boardman. I really appreciate that feedback, and I hope by no means you think I was trying to get out of meetings next time. I mean, I've been on this thing for 10 years and I show up every month, but I think that's really good feedback. I think encouraging people to use the email, because we read all the public comment that comes to us via email, even if it's in Spanish, we can get it interpreted, but I know that maybe that's a safer way to put in your input, express what you want without having the I mean, no one likes to stand up in front of an audience. So that's also an option for them, and then we can read all that and make sure that we get their input, so.
I mean, your point absolutely resonates with me, and that's, I think I have always personally tried to make a commitment to try to go and connect with these communities. I imagine we will never find a perfect time to engage every community, but I think Zach's history has been coming physically to meet these communities. We're engaging them in their native language, and to Polly's point, like there are lots of ways. So I don't think there will ever be a perfect solution. I think we can explore other times, but there's also logistics of a lot of different things to enable this. So I think it's a bigger question. But I do feel like Zach has a precedent of engaging and trying to engage the community as much as possible.
Yeah, so I think that the safety thing is real, and I think that different channels of communication, no matter what we would do with the time of this meeting, that's not going to change that. So understanding that email can be utilized, and understanding that that school leadership, including PTOs, PTAs, representative leadership, I think is another way to collect feedback without having to deal with that kind of a factor that might be an obstacle for some. So I think that it's important. That was a really good point from the gal who came up during public comment. Really appreciate that. But I will say that, there's something to be said about option one, if I could just say really fast. I know that right now, veterans' boundary is what it is. But if you look at option one and you see that veterans, what is it, Gentry? No, Vassar. Vassar is the delineator. And I think about how kids play when they're young, and the neighborhoods and how major streets sort of start to define that socialization of families, of neighborhoods. I know veterans' boundary is what it is right now, but from a long-term perspective, I think we have to look at this from a long-term perspective. And moving forward a boundary based on a current state, just because it's the current state, isn't necessarily better long-term for just how communities evolve naturally together. So I think we need to think about this from a socialization standpoint, not necessarily keeping groups together just to keep groups together. So I'm just going to offer that to broaden our perspective.
Thank you. Any other discussion from the committee before we close this agenda item? This is great. This is the whole point, is we need to have open mics. All right, very good. Then we'll close this agenda item for now. That brings us to closing items. 3.01, general public comment.
Pablo Nava Duran.
Well, you sure gave me a 5-minute public comments for that, so there you go. Ready to start. So I want to say thank you for all the making decision to have enough meeting for them and to save conversation with those parents, because many of the parents of those schools were originally from their children came from a lot of children came from the parents where their parents were immigrants from different countries. This is what happened to the current administration as right now. It's helpful to them to speak at public comments. They're very few. They're few to come to public comment because someone with fellow Asian might pick them up and not go see their children again. It's very sad, The reason why Barn Rooster decline is so low because those parents are not sending their kid to their public school because you have a Joe Lovato not veto all the bill that will protect all students in public school from a federal agency. So as a Ward 3 member, as an immigrant, this is my personal for me. We need to have another meeting with different time, not 5:30 p.m., to have not 5:30 p.m., maybe change it like 7 or 8 p.m. Make sure those families have time to go to the meeting after they have go on the dinners. After go to dinners, and make sure to have a Washoe County School District Police or a City of Reno Police only can patrol those agencies. Make sure those families are safe from a federal agency. So I cannot talk to those words because those words, well, if I talk to those words, those administrators, they're going to try to capture me and deport me.
Thank you.
No more public comment.
Very good. That brings us to item 3.02, the announcement of our next meeting, which will be February 19th, 2026. Have we settled on a location, Brett or Adam?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, but I think we'll be still back out in the community.
Definitely one of these schools.
Yeah. While we're on this agenda item 2, is there a sense of additional zoning topics that Zach will be bringing up? Because I was not tracking anything else. Okay, so basically, once we're through this, that will cover sort of Zach's agenda for the year.
That's right.
Cool, okay. So we can all plan our lives. Very good. That brings us to agenda item 3.03, adjourning the meeting. Thank you all for your time, and get home safe.